My daughter was dying in a hospital bed 3 floors below me, and the doctors couldn't tell me why. I was standing in the hospital cafeteria, hands shaking, as I tried to drink my 3rd cup of coffee that day, when my 15-year-old granddaughter, Sophie, slipped something into my jacket pocket. She didn't say a word, just brushed past me like she was heading to the bathroom, and when I reached into my pocket 5 minutes later, I found a folded sticky note with 7 words that would change everything. Locker, 515. Dad's gym, check before Monday. My name is Robert Chen, and I'm 64 years old. I raised my daughter Linda by myself after my wife Patricia died from breast cancer when Linda was only 7. Linda grew up to be everything I hoped for. Smart, kind, determined. She became a pediatric nurse, married a man named Marcus Webb when she was 26, and gave me the greatest gift of my life, my granddaughter Sophie. For 12 years, I thought we had the perfect family. I was wrong. It started 6 weeks ago. Linda called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice weak. "Dad, I don't feel right," she said. "I've been exhausted for weeks. Can't keep food down. Marcus thinks it's just stress from work, but..." She trailed off. The next day, Marcus took her to the ER. They ran tests. Blood work, CT scans, MRI. Everything came back inconclusive. Some elevated liver enzymes, signs of malnutrition, but no clear diagnosis. The doctors were baffled. Dr. Reeves, her primary physician, told me in that careful way doctors have when they don't want to admit they're stumped. "We're seeing symptoms that don't quite fit any pattern. We're running more specialized tests." Meanwhile, Linda got worse. She lost 17 pounds in 3 weeks. Her skin took on a grayish tint. She was sleeping 16 hours a day. Marcus was always there, playing the devoted husband, bringing her flowers, holding her hand, posting updates on Facebook about his warrior wife. I'll admit, I was grateful. When you're watching your only child fade away and medical science can't tell you why, you hold on to whatever support you can find. I trusted Marcus. God help me. I trusted him completely. Sophie had been quieter than usual. I figured she was scared about her mom. Teenagers don't always know how to process that kind of fear. She'd visit her mom's hospital room, sit in the corner with her phone, barely speaking. I thought she was just coping the way kids do these days, disappearing into social media to avoid reality. I didn't realize she was investigating. That morning in the hospital cafeteria, after she slipped me the note, I watched her walk away and join her father at Linda's room. Marcus had his arm around Sophie's shoulders, playing the supportive dad. I looked down at the note again. Locker 515. Dad's gym, check before Monday. Today was Saturday. The handwriting was Sophie's, cramped and urgent. She'd underlined before Monday 3 times. How did she even know about a locker at Marcus's gym? And why the urgency? Why couldn't she just tell me? But even as I asked myself these questions, something cold settled in my stomach. Sophie was smart. Smarter than most adults gave her credit for. If she was communicating in secret, if she was warning me to check something before Monday, there was a reason she couldn't just speak up. I made a decision. Marcus went to Powerhouse Gym on Fletcher Street every weekday morning at 5:30 a.m. It was Saturday afternoon. He'd be here at the hospital for hours. I could make it to the gym and back before anyone noticed. I told the nurse at the station I was stepping out for some air. 20 minutes later, I was standing in the lobby of Powerhouse Gym, my heart hammering. The kid at the front desk, couldn't have been more than 19, looked up from his phone. "Help you?" "I'm Robert Chen," I said, keeping my voice steady. "My son-in-law Marcus Webb is a member here. He asked me to grab something from his locker." 515, I think he said. The kid shrugged. "Member lockers are in the back. Just don't make a mess." It was that easy. I walked through the gym, past people running on treadmills and lifting weights, all of them focused on their own reflections, their own goals, none of them knowing that somewhere in this building was a locker that might hold answers to why my daughter was dying. Locker 515 was in the corner, bottom row, standard combination lock. The note said the password was Mom's birthday. Linda's birthday was April 22nd. I tried 0422, nothing. Then I realized Sophie had written Mom's birthday, not Linda's. She meant Patricia, my late wife. Sophie never knew her grandmother, but I'd told her stories. Patricia's birthday was September 16th. I tried 0916. The lock clicked open. Inside the locker was a small, waterproof bag, the kind you'd use for swimming. I pulled it out, my hands shaking, and unzipped it. Inside was a USB drive taped to a folded piece of notebook paper. The paper had Sophie's handwriting again. "Grandpa, I'm sorry. I didn't know who else to tell. I'm scared he'll hurt me if he knows I found this. Please be careful. I love you. S." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. He'll hurt me if he knows. Sophie was afraid of her own father. I closed the locker, shoved the bag into my jacket, and walked out of that gym on autopilot. My mind was screaming. What was on this USB drive? What had Sophie found? I couldn't go back to the hospital yet. Not until I knew what I was dealing with. I drove to the public library on Maple Street, went to one of the computer terminals in the back corner, and plugged in the drive. There were 4 folders. The first was labeled Surveillance. I clicked it open, and my blood turned to ice. Photos. Dozens of them. Pictures of Linda at the grocery store, at work, getting into her car, walking into our house. Timestamps going back 4 months. Someone had been following her, documenting her every move. But these weren't grainy stalker photos taken from a distance. These were clear, high-quality images. Professional. Calculated. The second folder was labeled Research. Inside were downloaded PDFs, screenshots from websites, bookmarked pages. My vision started to blur as I read the file names. Arsenic, poisoning, symptoms, PDF, undetectable, toxins, PDF, how long does thallium take, PDF, life, insurance, payout, timeline, PDF. I thought I might vomit right there in the library. Someone was researching how to poison my daughter, how to kill her in a way that wouldn't be detected. And this USB drive was hidden in Marcus's locker. The third folder was labeled Financial. I clicked it open with shaking fingers. Bank statements, not joint accounts. These were accounts I'd never seen before. Marcus's name only. And the numbers made me dizzy. Wire transfers. $8,500 here. $12,000 there. All going out to someone named D. Morrison. Over the past 6 months, Marcus had transferred nearly $80,000 to this person. Where was he getting that kind of money? He worked as an IT manager. Good salary, but not $80,000 in 6 months' money. Then I found the insurance documents. A life insurance policy on Linda, $2.8 million. I knew Linda had life insurance through her work, maybe $200,000. But this was a private policy, taken out 18 months ago. Marcus was the sole beneficiary, and paperclipped to the policy was a sticky note in handwriting I didn't recognize. Feminine, neat, it said. After the payout, we split 60 over 40, like we agreed. Patience, baby. Just a few more weeks. I sat there, staring at that note, and felt my entire world tilt sideways. Marcus wasn't just poisoning my daughter for insurance money. He was doing it with a partner, someone he called Baby, someone he'd promised $1.1 million to. The fourth folder was the one that made everything clear. It was labeled Communications. Inside were screenshots of text messages between Marcus and a contact saved as DM. I scrolled through them, and each message was another nail in Marcus's coffin. DM, how's she doing? Getting worse? Marcus, throwing up every morning now. Lost 8 more pounds. Doctors still can't figure it out. DM, perfect. Stick to the schedule. Small doses. We can't rush this. Marcus, I know, but it's hard watching her suffer. DM, you're not going soft on me, are you? Remember what we're doing this for. Hawaii, the beach house, freedom. Marcus, I'm not going soft. I just wish it was faster. DM, Monday is the last dose. By Wednesday, she'll be critical. By Friday, we'll be rich. Monday. Today was Saturday. That's why Sophie said before Monday. She'd seen these messages. She knew her father was planning the final dose on Monday, the dose that would kill her mother. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. I needed to call the police, but then I stopped. What exactly did I have? A USB drive that Sophie had somehow gotten from her father's gym locker. How did she even know it was there? How did she get it? And more importantly, would the police believe me? Or would Marcus just claim I was a grieving father looking for someone to blame for his daughter's mystery illness? I needed more. I needed proof that would stick. Proof that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I sat in that library for another hour, reading through every file, every document, every text message. And as I read, a picture formed. Marcus had been planning this for at least 2 years. The texts with DM went back that far. They'd met at some conference in Denver. She was a pharmaceutical sales rep named Diana Morrison. They'd started an affair. Then the affair had turned into a partnership, a plan. Get life insurance on Linda. Slowly poison her with something doctors wouldn't easily detect. Wait for her to die. Collect the money. Disappear together. The texts showed their entire fantasy. They were going to fake Marcus's grief for a few months. Then he'd move away to start fresh. Diana would quit her job to travel. They'd meet up in Maui and buy a property under an LLC. They'd be together, rich and free. And Linda would be dead. Sophie would lose her mother. I would lose my daughter. All because Marcus wanted money and a new life with his mistress. I downloaded everything from the USB drive onto the library computer, then emailed it all to myself. Then I cleared the browser history, pocketed the USB drive, and walked out into the late afternoon sunlight. I felt like a different person than the one who'd walked in 2 hours ago. That person had been broken, grieving, lost. This person was focused, clear, determined. I knew what I had to do, but I had to be smart about it. If Marcus suspected anything, he might panic. He might speed up his timeline. He might hurt Sophie if he knew she'd betrayed him. I couldn't risk that. I needed to protect my granddaughter while building a case that would put Marcus away for a very long time. I called Sophie's phone. She answered on the first ring, her voice barely a whisper. "Grandpa?" "I got it," I said quietly. "I saw everything." I heard her breath catch. Is it true? Is Dad really? We're going to talk about this in person, sweetheart. But not now, not where he can see us. Tomorrow morning, tell your dad you're staying at your friend Emma's house. I'll pick you up from Emma's at 9 a.m. We need to plan this carefully. Okay, she whispered. Then, even quieter, "Grandpa, I'm scared." "I know, baby. But you were so brave to find this. So smart to tell me. We're going to stop him. I promise you that." After I hung up, I went back to the hospital. Marcus was sitting in Linda's room, holding her hand, scrolling through his phone with the other. When he saw me, he looked up with tired eyes. "Hey, Robert, where have you been?" I looked at my daughter's husband. This man I'd welcomed into my family. This man who'd called me dad for 12 years. This man who was murdering my child for money. And I smiled. Just needed some air. "How's she doing?" "Sleeping mostly. Dr. Reeves wants to run more tests tomorrow." He rubbed his face. "I just wish we knew what was wrong." "Liar. You know exactly what's wrong. You're poisoning her." But I kept my voice calm. "We'll figure it out. Linda's strong. She'll fight through this." Marcus nodded, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Annoyance? Impatience? He wanted her dead by Friday. Every day she survived was a day his plan wasn't working. I stayed at the hospital until visiting hours, ended at 9 p.m. I kissed Linda's forehead. She barely stirred. Her skin felt hot and papery. I wanted to tell her everything right then, wake her up and say, "Your husband is killing you." But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I had a plan that would work. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Monday. The final dose. I had to make sure Linda didn't eat or drink anything Marcus gave her. But how could I do that without tipping him off? Sunday morning at 9 a.m. sharp, I picked up Sophie from her friend Emma's house. Emma's parents were divorced and her dad had weekend custody, So Emma spent most Sundays at her dad's apartment. It was the perfect cover. Sophie got in my car looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. "Have you slept?" I asked. She shook her head. "I keep thinking about Mom. Grandpa, how long has he been doing this?" "From what I can tell, at least 4 months, maybe longer. But we're going to stop him, Sophie. I need you to tell me everything. How did you find that USB drive?" "We drove to a diner across town, somewhere Marcus would never go. Over pancakes neither of us could eat." Sophie told me her story. "It started about 2 months ago," she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Dad got sloppy with his phone. He'd always been so careful, always keeping it locked. But one night he fell asleep on the couch, and his phone was just lying there, unlocked. I don't know why I looked. Maybe I was just bored. But I saw a text message preview from someone named DM. It said something like, 'Can't wait to touch you again.' And I knew." She swallowed hard. "I knew Dad was having an affair." I felt sick. Mom was getting sicker every day, and Dad was texting some other woman. I wanted to tell Mom, but I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was innocent. So I decided to look for more proof first. "That's when you started watching him," I said. Sophie nodded. "I installed this app on his phone. It's called Shadow Track. It runs in the background and sends copies of all his texts and calls to another phone. I set it up to send everything to my old phone, the one I don't use anymore. I thought I'd just find evidence of the affair, and then I'd tell Mom, and she'd divorce him, and we'd be okay." Her voice broke. "But then I read the texts. About the poison, about the insurance, about how Mom would be dead by the end of January. And I realized my dad wasn't just cheating on my mom. He was killing her. Why didn't you go to the police?" I asked gently. "I tried," she whispered. "I called the non-emergency line. I told them my dad was poisoning my mom. You know what they said? They said I needed to have an adult make the report. They said teenagers sometimes make false accusations against parents during divorce situations. They basically didn't believe me. My heart broke for her. So you decided to find more evidence. I followed him one Saturday when he said he was going to the gym. I watched him through the window. He didn't work out. He went straight to his locker, took out that waterproof bag, looked at whatever was inside, then put it back. I waited until he left. Then I snuck in. I told the guy at the desk I was Marcus Webb's daughter, and I needed to grab my dad's water bottle from his locker. He just waved me through. You guessed the combination? I tried a bunch of things. Birthdays. Anniversaries. When I tried Grandma Patricia's birthday, it opened. I think Dad used it because it's a date that would never come up in conversation. No one would randomly guess it. She took a shaky breath. When I saw what was on that USB drive, I knew I needed help. Real help. But I couldn't tell Dad I'd found it, or he'd know I was onto him. So I decided to tell you. I knew you'd believe me. I knew you'd help. I reached across the table and took her hand. You did the right thing, sweetheart. You saved your mom's life. You know that, right? Tears spilled down her cheeks. Is she going to be okay? Can they fix the damage? I don't know, I said honestly. But the first step is making sure she doesn't get another dose tomorrow. Then we go to the police with everything you found, and we make sure your father never hurts anyone again. We spent the next 3 hours planning. Sophie would go home that afternoon and act completely normal. She'd have dinner with her dad, talk about school, pretend everything was fine. Monday morning, she'd go to school like usual. Meanwhile, I would be at the hospital, making sure Marcus didn't have a chance to give Linda anything. But we needed more than just prevention. We needed proof that would hold up in court. The USB drive was good, but a defense lawyer could argue it was planted, tampered with, fake. We needed to catch Marcus in the act. We need to set a trap, Sophie said. And for a moment she sounded so much older than 15. We need to make him confess. She was right. And I had an idea. Monday morning, I was at the hospital by 6 a.m. I'd called Dr. Reeves's office over the weekend and left an urgent message asking for a meeting first thing Monday. At 7:30, she arrived looking concerned. I told her receptionist it was about Linda's treatment, which was technically true. Dr. Reeves met me in a small consultation room. Mr. Chen, what's going on? Your message sounded urgent. I took a deep breath. This was it. Dr. Reeves, I have reason to believe my daughter is being poisoned by her husband. Her expression went from concern to skeptical in an instant. Mr. Chen, I understand you're frustrated that we haven't found a diagnosis yet, but I have proof. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd saved, the texts between Marcus and Diana, the research on poisons, the insurance policy. Dr. Reeves's face went pale as she read. Her hands started shaking. Oh my God. Oh my God. This can't be real. It's real. And according to these messages, today is when he's supposed to give her the final dose. We need to test Linda's blood specifically for the substances mentioned in his research. Arsenic, thallium, and we need to make sure Marcus doesn't give her anything today. Dr. Reeves was already pulling out her phone. I'm calling hospital security and the police. Mr. Chen, if this is real, it's real, I said firmly. My granddaughter found this. She risked her safety to get this information. Please, you have to help us. Within an hour, the hospital was quietly swarming with people who knew Dr. Reeves, hospital security, 2 detectives from the police department. They listened to my story, looked at the evidence, and made a plan. They would run specialized blood tests on Linda immediately, looking for the specific toxins Marcus had researched. They would also place undercover officers in the hospital to watch Marcus. But more importantly, they agreed to my trap. Marcus arrived at the hospital at 10 a.m., just like he did every morning. He was carrying Linda's favorite smoothie from the juice bar down the street. Mango pineapple. He always brought it for her. Said it was the only thing she could keep down anymore. I now knew why. It was the perfect delivery method for poison. Sweet, thick, masked any bitter taste. Hey, Robert, Marcus said, setting the smoothie on Linda's tray table. How's she doing this morning? About the same, I said. I was sitting in the chair beside Linda's bed. She was sleeping, her breathing shallow. I wanted to grab that smoothie and dump it down the sink, but I had to stick to the plan. Marcus glanced at his watch. I've got a work call at 10:30. Mind if I step out? Can you make sure Linda drinks her smoothie when she wakes up? The vitamins are good for her. Vitamins. Right. Sure, I said. I'll make sure she gets it. Marcus squeezed my shoulder. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. As soon as he left the room, I carefully picked up the smoothie cup using a tissue and placed it in the bag the police had given me. Linda would be told she couldn't have it because of the new tests they were running. The smoothie would be sent to the lab for analysis. But we still needed a confession. The texts and the poison smoothie would be strong evidence, but Marcus could claim the texts were taken out of context, that Diana Morrison was just a friend, that someone else must have tampered with the smoothie. We needed him to admit it in his own words. That's where Sophie came in. At lunchtime, Sophie texted her dad saying she wasn't feeling well, and the school nurse was sending her home. Could he pick her up? Marcus texted back that he was at the hospital but would send an Uber for her. Sophie texted back, "It's okay," Grandpa said. "He'll get me. He's running errands anyway." I picked Sophie up from school at 12:30. She was wearing the wire the police had given her, hidden under her hoodie. Her hands were shaking as she got in the car. "I don't know if I can do this," she said. "You can," I told her. "You're the bravest person I know. Just ask the questions we talked about. Get him talking. He loves you, Sophie. He'll want to explain himself to you." We drove to Marcus's office. Sophie had texted him asking if she could come by because she needed to talk. He'd responded, "Of course, sweetie. Everything okay?" The police were listening to everything through Sophie's wire. I waited in the parking lot, my heart in my throat. This was the most dangerous part. If Marcus suspected anything, if he realized Sophie knew, but I had to trust her. She was smart. She was brave. And she wanted justice for her mother. Sophie was in Marcus's office for 22 minutes. It felt like 22 hours. When she finally came out, she looked pale but composed. She got in my car and said quietly, "I got it." He told me everything. Later, when I listened to the recording, I felt sick. Sophie had played it perfectly. She'd told her dad she'd found some weird charges on his credit card statement that came to the house. She'd Googled the company name and found out it was a life insurance broker. Why did he have such a big policy on Mom? And Marcus, thinking his daughter was just confused, had actually tried to explain. He told her that he and Mom weren't happy anymore, that he'd fallen in love with someone else, that sometimes adults made difficult choices. He didn't admit to the poisoning directly, but he said enough. He said, "When your mom is gone, everything will be easier. We'll be taken care of financially. You'll understand when you're older." Sophie had asked, her voice small. "When Mom is gone, Dad, what does that mean?" There was a long pause on the recording. Then Marcus said, "Sophie, sometimes people get sick and don't recover. But when that happens, the life insurance money means you'll be able to go to any college you want. We'll be okay." "But Dad, the doctors don't even know what's wrong with her. How do you know she won't recover?" Another pause. Then, quieter. "I just know, sweetheart. Sometimes you just know." It wasn't a full confession, but combined with the texts, the research, the poison smoothie, and the timeline, it was enough. The police arrested Marcus at his office at 3:15 p.m. Sophie and I were long gone by then. We were back at the hospital, where Dr. Reeves had just confirmed what we already knew. Linda's blood showed high levels of arsenic and thallium, consistent with chronic poisoning over several months. They'd started her on chelation therapy immediately to remove the heavy metals from her system. "She's going to recover," Dr. Reeves told me, her eyes bright with tears. "It'll take time, but we caught it. She's going to live." I sat down in the hallway and cried. Sophie sat beside me, and we held each other and cried together. The police arrested Diana Morrison that same evening. She confessed, almost immediately, trying to cut a deal. She told them Marcus had approached her with the plan, that he'd convinced her they could get away with it, that she'd helped him research the poisons and had even procured them through her pharmaceutical contacts. She was looking at conspiracy to commit murder, along with a list of other charges. Marcus didn't confess. He lawyered up immediately, claimed everything was circumstantial, claimed Diana was lying to save herself, claimed someone had hacked his phone to plant those text messages. But it didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. The trial took 8 months. During that time, Linda slowly recovered. The damage to her liver would be permanent, but she was alive. She was walking, talking, laughing again. She'd lost 12 years of her life to a man who'd tried to murder her for money, but she was determined not to lose any more time to bitterness. Sophie testified at the trial. So did I. So did Dr. Reeves, the police detectives, the forensic specialists who'd analyzed the smoothie and found enough arsenic to kill a person twice Linda's size. Diana Morrison testified for the prosecution in exchange for a reduced sentence. She told the jury everything. How Marcus had fantasized about killing Linda for over a year before actually starting. How they'd tested different poisons on Linda's coffee before settling on a combination of arsenic and thallium in her daily smoothie. How Marcus had been so confident he'd get away with it because doctors rarely test for deliberate poisoning in cases like this. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Marcus Webb was found guilty on all counts: attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and assault with a deadly weapon. The judge sentenced him to 45 years in prison without possibility of parole. Diana Morrison got 25 years for her cooperation. It's been 2 years now since that Saturday in the hospital cafeteria when Sophie slipped me that note. Linda is back to work part-time. She's in therapy, processing what happened, learning to trust again. It's hard. Some days are harder than others, but she's alive. Sophie is 17 now, a senior in high school. She wants to study criminal justice in college. She says what happened to her mom showed her how important it is to listen to people when they say something's wrong, even if they're young, even if they seem scared to speak up. She wants to help people the way the police eventually helped us. I'm 66 now. I think about those 7 words on that sticky note every day. Locker 515. Dad's gym. Check before Monday. 7 words that saved my daughter's life. 7 words that took more courage than most adults will ever have to muster. People ask me sometimes how Sophie knew to look, how she found the evidence, how she had the presence of mind to save her mother. The truth is, I think Sophie always knew something was wrong. Kids sense things. They notice when patterns change, when people act differently. She'd noticed her dad being secretive with his phone. She'd noticed him being too eager to give Linda her smoothies. She'd noticed him researching life insurance when Linda first got sick. She'd noticed, and unlike most kids, she'd trusted her instincts enough to investigate. I tell other grandparents this now, when they ask for advice. Listen to your grandchildren. If they tell you something's wrong, believe them. If they come to you scared, protect them. Sophie saved her mother's life, but she couldn't have done it alone. She needed an adult who would take her seriously, who would act on what she discovered, who would help her see it through. I'm grateful every day that I was that person for her. There's a quote I heard once that stuck with me. Evil flourishes when good people do nothing. Marcus was counting on everyone doing nothing. He was counting on doctors being baffled, on Linda being too sick to question him, on Sophie being too young to be believed, on me being too grief-stricken to think clearly. He was wrong. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Sophie hadn't found that phone unlocked, if she hadn't followed her dad to the gym, if she hadn't been brave enough to slip me that note. I wonder how many other people out there are like Marcus and Diana, counting on everyone around them to be too trusting, too busy, too distracted to notice what's happening right in front of them. The answer is more than we want to believe. According to the FBI, there are an estimated 10,000 to 20,000 attempted poisonings in the United States each year. Most go undetected because the symptoms mimic natural illness. Most victims never know they were targeted. Most perpetrators get away with it. But not Marcus. Not this time. Linda tells me she doesn't hate him. I don't know how that's possible, but she says hate takes too much energy. Energy she needs for healing. She says she feels sorry for him, that he destroyed his entire life for money he'll never spend and a relationship that was built on someone else's death. Sophie is less forgiving. She refuses to visit him in prison. She won't take his calls. She says she doesn't have a father anymore, and maybe that's healthier. Maybe kids don't have to forgive everything just because we tell them family is supposed to mean something. Me? I think about seeing Marcus in that courtroom when the verdict was read. He looked at me across the room, and I saw it in his eyes. Not remorse, not regret. Just anger that he got caught. Anger that his plan failed. Anger that the old man and the teenage girl had outsmarted him. I think that's what I'll remember most. Not the fear, not the frantic planning, not even the relief when Linda started to recover. I'll remember the look on Marcus's face when he realized that the family he'd underestimated, the people he'd thought were too loving and trusting to ever suspect him, had been the ones to bring him down. The prosecutor told me later that cases like ours are rare. Most poisoning cases don't get solved because there's no smoking gun, no clear motive, no cooperating witness. We had all three. The USB drive was the smoking gun. The life insurance was the motive. Diana Morrison was the witness. But more than that, we had something Marcus never expected. We had Sophie, a 15-year-old girl who loved her mother enough to spy on her father, who was smart enough to gather evidence, who was brave enough to come forward even when she was terrified, who trusted her grandfather enough to ask for help. That's the real story, I think. Not the poisoning, not the trial, not even the justice. The real story is about a kid who saw evil and decided to fight it, who couldn't save the world, but could save her mom, who knew the difference between loyalty to family and protecting a criminal, even when that criminal was her own father. She made the hard choice, the right choice, the choice that saved a life. I hope when you're reading this, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you suspect something's wrong, where someone you love might be in danger, where speaking up might cost you everything, I hope you think about Sophie, about a 15-year-old girl who had more courage than most adults will ever need. Trust your gut. Ask questions. Don't ignore red flags just because they're pointing at someone you love. Evil doesn't always look like evil. Sometimes it looks like a devoted husband bringing his sick wife her favorite smoothie every morning. Sometimes it looks like a loving father posting prayers for his dying wife on Facebook. Sometimes evil looks exactly like what we want to see, and that's what makes it so dangerous. But sometimes, if we're lucky and vigilant and brave, We see through it. We catch it. We stop it. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we save someone we love. That's what Sophie did. That's what we did together. And I thank God every day that she slipped me that note, that she trusted me with her terrible discovery, that she gave me the chance to help her save her mother. Check before Monday, the note said. We checked, we found the truth, and we fought back. I hope you would too.